Hi, David.
Hi, Brian. Thank you. I was just calling about a couple callers ago. One of your callers was talking about, the Brett Baer, Kamala Harris interview. And I have a ton of problems with Fox. I think they're just a lying, terrible organization. But I mean, like, one of the first questions, it might have even been the first question that Kamala was asked, was a very straightforward question. It was, how many illegals have entered this country under the Biden-Harris administration? And she couldn't give a number. She absolutely refused to just give a specific. She wasn't like it was 5 million, it was 7 million, it was 1 million. Mm-hmm. She did whatever she could to just not give a number. Now, I'm not saying she has to know the literal number, but why couldn't she just give a general ballpark based on all the data that shows that millions of people have entered the country? And I think that it's just one quick point. I think it's because Kamala Harris is in this kind of strange position where she has to tell Americans, hey, we're going to fix all these problems, but then tell Americans, hey, everything's going great because of the Biden administration. Well, you got to pick one. It's like you can't say everything's great.
So let me respond. Sure. Let me respond. So yeah, she absolutely could have given out a statistic. She's running for office. I wouldn't have had a problem if she gave out a statistic. However, you could give out a statistic, but I think she keeps hammering this home, which is there was a bipartisan border bill that was set to be passed, and Donald Trump made sure that it wasn't. So if Republicans want to talk seriously about fixing our issues at the border, and it is a crisis, then why wouldn't they pass a bill that was endorsed by Border Patrol? Why wouldn't they pass a bill that was endorsed by MAGA Republicans? One man by the name of Langford, who Donald Trump once said was the best conservative in office dealing with the border, but yet Langford wanted to pass the bill. The only reason why is so Donald Trump. So I hear what you're saying in that Kamala Harris is not perfect.
Why do you think?
Well, it's very simple. The reason why she didn't, it's very simple because she wants to answer questions in a way that makes herself look good. Doesn't mean she has to lie, which, by the way, she didn't. But she also didn't directly answer the question. I wouldn't have had a problem if she did answer the question. Here's what Brett Baer's trying to do. He's trying to make the case that every single illegal that crosses the border, it's all on the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. It's all on them. So what I would have preferred was
it's not all on them.
No, I understand. Yeah. I'm not saying you're claiming that.
Right.
Now, she could have given out a number, but then Brett Baer would have interrupted her when he gave her explanation as to why. I'm not trying to make excuses for Kamala Harris. I wouldn't have had a problem if she answered that. But at the same token, I didn't have a problem with what she said.
Well, the reason I had a problem with what you said is because, look, just be honest and say this is the number. And she could have at least said, hey, X amount came in under Trump and X amount came in under Biden, but she won't do that because she has no interest in actually telling Americans the truth. She's just interested in winning, which, granted, Trump is doing the same thing, but it's like I keep seeing these people saying.
I'm not sure I would make that analogy or comparison that they're both on an equal playing field as far as lies. Now, Kamala didn't.
The world famous radio shopping show.
Sorry about that. Kamala Harris didn't directly answer the question, but I wouldn't characterize that as her being a liar. Why do you call her a liar?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily what I mean by lying is she just will not directly lie, but just work around actually answering the question. So yeah, maybe in the strict.
All right. So you made your point on that. Can you give me another example where you say, man, she is not being honest with the American people?
Okay, sure. So I mean, she and Biden, for more or less the first 3 years of their administration, kept playing it up as if the border is not a crisis, as if it's not a problem. They only waited until the last year, and then they started saying, yeah, this border issue is a problem. And the only reason they did that was because Americans kept polling that they were really pissed off at the border. They spent years saying the border's, it's not a crisis, it's not a problem, we got it under control. And they just waited until the situation became untenable.
Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I don't recall Joe Biden or Kamala Harris saying that it wasn't a problem. When did they say it wasn't a problem?
Biden's the speaker that the black woman who's the speaker.
Okay, you're talking about Jean Pierre, but you're specifically right. But you're okay. But hold on, let's backtrack. You're specifically talking about Kamala Harris. I don't recall Kamala Harris ever saying that the issues at the border were never an issue. Now, she did say they're not wide open borders, right? I mean, everyone says it's wide open, and that's also a lie.
Well, look, I mean, a border with holes in it is if you have a fortified house but your main door is wide open, the house is more or less wide open. I mean, it's not
No, that's not true.
actually wide
No,
open.
that's not true.
Yes,
The
when 10
border's
million
not wide
people
open.
enter, it's wide open.
No, wide open would mean it's wide open. Just because someone enters your home illegally doesn't mean your house is wide open. Just because people go through the border illegally doesn't mean the border is wide open. Now, we can do things to improve it. We can do things to make it more difficult for people to cross the border illegally. I'm with you on that. But hold on. But it's not wide open. And I'm sorry, sir, that's a lie. The border is not wide open. And Kamala Harris never said that everything was perfect at the border. She's never said it wasn't an issue. So I respectfully disagree with you on that.
Well, she doesn't have to say everything's perfect, but when they spent years they didn't literally say word for word, the border is secure. But what they did do was do everything they could for up until more or less 2024, late 2023. They just ignored the problem and continued to downplay it. Now, I get it. Politicians downplay things all the time. Trump downplayed every negative thing about his administration, but that doesn't absolve the current administration. And look, my other point is Trump is so hilariously unpopular, yet he's more or less neck and neck in the polling with Kamala. How bad did the Democrats screw up for them to possibly, I'm not saying she's
I
going to
disagree.
lose, but for them to possibly lose to one of the worst candidates we've ever seen.
So you think that's the fault of Democrats? It's not the fault of ignorant, stupid Americans that don't understand policy, that can't name one policy under Donald Trump, that blame Kamala Harris and Joe Biden for all of our problems? You want to blame I'm not saying the Democrats are perfect. There's a lot of stupid people in this country, and there's a lot of those people that are going to be voting for Donald Trump. Now, listen, sir, with all due respect, the border is not we agree that there's issues at the border, no question. Could we have put this border bill in place earlier in Joe Biden's administration? No question. Is Joe Biden perfect? I'm not in Joe Biden's mind. Is he perfect? No, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm not a one-issue voter. I'll tell you one thing.
Right.
We have the lowest inflation of all the G7 countries in the world. He's done a damn good job bringing inflation down. He's done a damn good job with
he hasn't done a good job of bringing prices down.
Well, that's because
Everything
the president
is still vastly expensive.
The president doesn't set the price of bread. I'm telling you that inflation is down under 3%.
I'm not saying inflation is down, but that's only after it absolutely obliterated everybody, and we're still paying these.
And was it obliterated? Was it obliterated when Donald Trump left office? Whose fault was that?
It was, partly his administration.
Thank you.
Fault,
okay, so we have the war in the
COVID.
Ukraine. We have the war. We're coming out of a pandemic. That's not Joe Biden's fault. I don't know why, with all due respect, you guys want to blame Joe Biden for that. I just said our inflation is under 3%. We have records when it comes to NASDAQ. We have a bipartisan infrastructure bill that Donald Trump promised he would get done. He never got done. Oh, yeah, by the way, in 2016, speaking of the border, Donald Trump, he said he would build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it. I don't see Kamala Harris and Joe Biden lying about the border or lying on their candidacy or lying when Joe Biden ran for office.
They lied through omission by just continuing to say it's not a problem.
And I just told you, Kamala Harris has never said on the record that the border was not a problem. You keep saying that, and it bothers me, sir. We can disagree.
She did it because she can significantly downplay it.
And give me a quote. Okay, well, you can generalize and say that she's downplaying something, but the important is the proof in the pudding. They put together a bipartisan bill. They negotiated with MAGA Republicans. Now, if you want to say it was a little too late, okay, they still tried to get it done. What the hell did Donald Trump do? Did he have a bipartisan anything when he was president of the United States? Build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it.
The Mexico paying for it was ridiculous. Obviously, it didn't happen.
He campaigned on it.
Border crossings under Trump. I agree, but border
crossings under Donald Trump were lower.
Of what
exactly? We had something called
not just lower, way lower.
And there's something called cause and effect, which I just talked to you about.
Right.
We had something called COVID. You're not going to blame Donald Trump for COVID, even though his response to it was embarrassing.
That's not just why people weren't crossing under Trump because they were afraid they were going to get deported under his administration. They were not afraid under Biden's administration.
And where is the
literally the day Biden got?
So you
the
think
evidence is in the fact that when Biden,
So you think the reason why more illegals are crossing the border now has to do with the fact that they're not scared of being deported, but they were more scared under Trump, and you're discounting COVID? You're discounting the fact that we were
I'm not discounting COVID. Because COVID came late into Trump's administration. When Biden came into office, he immediately rolled back a lot of policies. They even talked about it during Harris's Fox interview. He rolled back a lot of policies like, remain in Mexico and things like that. And why did they do that? Because they wanted illegals to come into the country.
No, I don't believe
and
that.
That's effectively,
No, I don't believe that.
Well, then why did he roll them back? Why do you think Biden and Harris rolled it back?
Why do they want? Well, tell me why you think they want illegals in this country. Tell me why.
Because they know that Democrats sympathize with illegals and they believe that we should help people around the world, which I agree with, but you have to go through legal channels, and they know it's politically beneficial. At least it was.
So you think Joe Biden wanted millions of illegals in this country because, quote, Democrats like illegals? That's your reasoning?
I mean, why would they possibly allow all these people in and remove the policies that Trump had in place?
Okay,
why did they remove those policies?
So first of all, what I would say
it's not a rhetorical question. I'd like to know why you think that.
First of all, what I would say to that, number one, is I would like to think that most of these people are not bad people. They're not coming into this. Now, would I like them to come in legally, a legal process? Absolutely. Some of them have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to think that there's something called compassion, and many of these people with their children and their families want to come in this country for a better life for themselves. I'm not saying I agree with every policy or that Joe Biden has done when it comes to the border. I'm not saying I agree with everything. What I am saying is this is not all his fault. The borders are not wide open. Kamala Harris, who is running for president, has never said that we don't have any problems at the border. Now, if you want to,
why did he remove the policy? Why do you think he removed the Remain in Mexico policy?
Well, I just told you why. I just gave you my reasoning why I feel.
Want to give people compassion?
I gave you my reasoning why I feel a certain way. I can tell you this: you have a better chance of being the victim of a crime, somebody that is a legal citizen in this country, than somebody that is illegal. But I want to ask you a question now, because we've talked about the border ad nauseum, and I disagree with you on a lot of the stuff, but that's fine. Who are you voting for? Who are you voting for next month?
Well, as I've explained to you in prior calls, I'm not going to vote for either one of them because I think both candidates are terrible.
Why do you think Kamala is terrible?
Because she's continuing the same broken administration that has been
broken?
Going on for the last several years.
What's broken about the
Broken
administration?
is the fact that we elected a president who can barely function as a human, hence why he's not even running anymore, because he's so old and decrepit.
Okay, so he's so old and
That's one of the
decrepit.
reasons.
He's so old. I don't understand. Are you a doctor? Like, I think we could agree that he's not the same man maybe he was 10 years ago.
I don't have to be a doctor to see that he's literally falling apart. I mean, you saw what he did at the
Okay, so hold on a second. You're talking about so you're talking about Joe Biden, though, and the question was, are you voting for Trump or Kamala Harris? So I'd like to focus on the now. Why are you not voting for Kamala Harris? That has nothing to do with Joe Biden's health.
Well, it does because
no, it doesn't.
She continued to. Well, yeah, it does because for
doesn't.
years she continued to just not talk about Biden's health. What, are we supposed to act like she didn't know this guy was falling apart and could barely function?
Okay,
she worked with him all the time.
You're
she
characterizing
about it.
You're characterizing Joe Biden as barely functioning. He had a bad debate. I haven't seen anything from him.
It wasn't a bad debate.
Listen.
A bad debate is not where you collapse and say we beat Medicare.
All right,
That's
so
not
you're making a claim that Joe Biden can't function and Kamala was somehow lying at the fact that he can't function. I disagree with you on that. Give me a reason why you're not voting for Kamala. By the way, it's going to be Trump or Harris, okay? You have the right not to vote, okay? Yeah. But I'm wondering, what is it about Harris that you hate so much that you would stand out of this race when you have a man who is a 34-count felon, liable sexual abuser, who lies on a daily basis, who attacks everybody from POWs, brave men and women in uniform, to women on looks? And I'm trying to figure out why you can't.
I have a perfect answer for you, and it doesn't have anything to do with Trump. Maybe a week ago, Harris tweeted out something about how we're sending, hundreds of millions of dollars of aid to Lebanon, and it was hysterical because Lebanon's being attacked by countries that the U.S. is funding under Kamala. So under her genius strategy and Biden's genius strategy, we fund Israel, give them all this money, and then they attack countries, and then we give them aid. It's like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to fund someone
What country is Israel attacking that right now we're giving them aid? Help me out with that.
Well, she gave that aid package to Lebanon, or at least she said she wanted.
So right now,
and that's including Palestine. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that we're aiding Palestine, and we're giving them a lot of aid, and we're also giving Israel. I'm sorry, I just disagree with you factually on that one.
What do you disagree with?
You're saying
what we're doing.
You're saying right now. Well, first of all, let me be clear on this. Hamas is the evil group that we are talking about here. And when they fund Israel, Israel is trying to defeat Hamas. They're not trying to kill every innocent Palestinian. So I want to be.
Well, that's very debatable.
Okay,
I mean,
so
they look.
no,
they are
it's
trying
not.
to defeat
Come
Hamas,
on,
but
man.
I mean, they've killed
Come on,
tons of
man.
innocent people.
And why are they doing
killed
that?
little
And why are they?
babies in hospitals.
And you think they're trying to kill innocent children in Palestine?
Yeah, actually, yeah, they are. It's actually very crystal clear because they know, hey, this little kid that we kill now isn't going to be an enemy 20 years from now.
There is
I
no
actually
evidence.
understand it in
There
terms
is
of
no
war. It's evil,
evidence.
but
There is no evidence, sir.
Yeah,
With all
there
due,
is.
no, there is
Yes,
not.
there is.
There is no evidence.
There's tons of Palestinian people saying that they're being brutalized by the Israeli
Right, and those
army.
are the, and I'm sure those are the same Palestinian people that think that Israel should cease to exist. You're all over the place, man. I'm trying to get factually accurate information from you. You're making claims that Israel wants to kill all of innocent Palestinian people, and you're making claims that Kamala Harris is funding the people that Israel's trying to kill. No, Israel's trying to kill Hamas. It doesn't mean they're perfect. So I'm trying to understand.
Well, yeah, but they're literally, I mean, something like 8 or 9%, 8 to 10% of Palestine is effectively wiped off the map.
And by the way,
Kamala
Kamala Harris has not been the one to approve that aid. It's been Joe Biden. I'm asking you about Kamala Harris, who is still the vice
Kamala
president.
Harris, coincidentally, is part of that administration.
Okay,
it's not like she has no burden to bear on it.
She's the vice president, and she is not the one who sends off on funds. So I'm asking you again. You hate Kamala Harris. You think she's awful, just like Donald Trump. She's not a convicted felon. She's never been accused or even tried for a crime. She is a woman who's lived a pretty darn good life. She seems like she has a pretty nice family. She hasn't been accused of sexual assault. She's got no felonies on her record. I understand you don't agree with all of her policies. I'm never going to agree with every policy of every candidate. What is it about Kamala Harris that is so bad to you that you're like, I hate Trump and I hate Harris?
Well, respectfully, Brent, I literally just explained this whole war in Palestine and Lebanon and Israel.
But she never,
that we're funding both sides.
Okay, you say we. Okay, first of all, we're not funding Hamas.
US,
That's not true.
The US.
We're not funding Hamas. That is not
funding Hamas. I didn't say that.
Okay, well,
I said
Hamas
we're funding Israel to kill. Yeah.
We are not funding Israel to kill innocent Palestinians. That's also not
Yes,
accurate.
we are.
No, we are not.
Yes,
In fact,
it's
no,
literally
we
happening.
are not.
Are you saying innocent Palestinians
There is a
are not
difference,
being killed by Israelis?
sir. There is a difference between Israel and deaths of innocent Palestinians that are done not intentionally, and our government saying, you know what, we are going to fund Israel so that they can kill innocent Palestinians. Can you not differentiate that difference? In war, innocent people die. You do understand that, don't you, sir?
Difference when almost 10% of Palestine has been killed. Almost 10%.
You do understand. You do understand.
10%.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then, since you think you know more than Kamala Harris, with all due respect. What do you think Benjamin Netanyahu should do since Hamas is infiltrating themselves among the innocent Palestinian people? What are they supposed to do?
Well, here's what I can say to that. Whatever he wants to do and Israel wants to do is their business. I don't think the U.S. should be funding this ridiculous war. That's not our business. And if Trump's in office, he'll do the same. He's made it clear he wants Israel to do that. If Kamala's in the office, she's going to do the same thing.
So according to you,
the same person in terms of foreign wars.
So according to you,
I'm not voting for either one of them.
So according to you, we shouldn't give any financial aid to any of our allies at any time, anywhere, any place.
I didn't say that. Nope, I didn't say that.
So just if it's
Israel,
Israel,
we shouldn't give financial aid to Israel because of what they're doing.
So
they're not just killing Hamas. Look, I wish they were just killing Hamas.
So what are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to do then? How do they get Hamas? What are they supposed to do?
What they can do is do however they want to. It's their business.
However they want to. So it's not our business to help our allies when they had their own 9/11. Okay. Well, I would respectfully disagree with you on that.
Should we fund another 20-year war like Iraq and Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan and be over in that part of the world for another 2 decades and spend trillions of dollars? Is that really the answer?
Should we have not gone to Afghanistan after 9/11?
Look, I'm not a foreign war expert.
Neither am I. I asked you a question. Should we have not gone to Afghanistan after 9/11? I'm not an expert either.
I would say we should have. But
in some cases we should. So if somebody attacks our country and kills a bunch of innocent people, it's okay for us to go there. But if one of our allies gets their 9/11, we don't help them at all. Is that your policy, your foreign policy, sir? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
Context matters. I'm totally fine with helping allies, but you also have to say, A, at what cost, and B, what are those allies doing? And we're seeing what the cost is to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars. And then we're also seeing what Israel is doing. I didn't even intend to make this phone call with you all about Israel. I'm perfectly willing to talk about it, but I'm just saying this is why I'm not supporting either one of them, because both candidates are all for this ridiculous nonsense war that the U.S. really shouldn't have involved.
Not true. In fact, if you actually listen,
true.
no, it's not true. If you actually happen to listen to Kamala Harris and her statements on this, she said that Israel has a right to defend themselves, but she is pushing and trying as hard as she can, and so is Joe Biden. You can laugh at, but you can let me finish.
It's just a generic, sure.
For a ceasefire, which I think most people want in this country, she wants a ceasefire, and I think most people would regard Kamala Harris and Joe Biden a little bit more tougher on Israel than Donald Trump and those on the far right. Don't you find it interesting that Donald Trump won't even say if he wants Vladimir Putin and Russia to defeat the Ukraine? Don't you find that utterly despicable? This is not equal in any way, shape, or form. You're entitled to your opinions, but Donald Trump won't even say whether he wants Ukraine to win the war. You don't have a problem with that, but you don't like policies of the Joe Biden administration. But yet you're not willing to vote for Kamala Harris because of for aid to Israel. Okay, fine. We'll agree to disagree on that. But that's enough for you to say I'm not going to vote for Harris either. So that's the part that confuses me.
Well, considering our country is literally broke, we're tens of trillions of dollars in debt, and what are we supposed to do? Send hundreds of billions of dollars, potentially over $1 trillion in aid.
Let's talk about that.
Countries.
Let's talk about money.
Yeah.
Let's talk about money. Donald Trump got us $8.2 trillion in debt in 8 years. Our economy is doing much better than it was.
4 years.
I'm sorry, in 4 years.
You said 8 years.
Even worse. Yes, correct.
I just made your argument for you.
$8.2 trillion he got us in debt in 4 years, right? And you can say what you want about the Biden and Harris administration when it comes to foreign affairs, but we are doing better than all the other G7 countries when it comes to inflation, when it comes to unemployment.
Yeah, but you're right, but that's a separate argument from saying we're actually doing good. We can be doing better than other countries which are not doing particularly well. That doesn't mean that we're doing good. Yeah, we're doing better than Italy and Germany and
Actually,
France.
it does. The Dow had record numbers just yesterday. Unemployment is the lowest it's been in 50 years. So yes, with respect, sir, we're doing pretty good.
Inflation's the highest it's been for years.
Inflation is under 3%. How many times do I have to keep telling you that?
Only after it was over 9% like 2 years ago, and Americans are still paying those prices.
And why? And you don't think inflation is going to go through the roof when if Donald Trump becomes president of the United States again, with his policies on tariffs, with his policies on foreign affairs? You don't think that those numbers would climb? And you're not going to give Joe Biden any credit for where we're at right now?
Look, yeah, Biden can deserve credit for kind of getting it down. I mean, again, prices are still up and people literally can't afford to live in this country for a whole bunch of different financial reasons. If Trump was in office again, the reason that we put ourselves in this insane inflation period was because of COVID. That would have happened whether Biden, Trump, Harris, or anybody.
I understand what you're saying, but I want to ask you a serious question here.
Well, do you agree with that or disagree with that?
I disagree with a lot of what you're saying. I really do, sir. But I want to ask you a question. Sure. If today Donald Trump shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, would you still stay out of this presidential election? I'm just curious. Would you still not vote? If Donald Trump today murdered somebody on Fifth Avenue, would you still not vote for? I understand you don't like some of her foreign affair policies and you don't like her. Okay, I get that. Would you still stay out of this race? Is there anything that Donald Trump could do where you would say, geez, I really don't like Kamala Harris? The reason why I ask you this question, sir, is because I know a lot of Republicans that are voting for Harris, not like Liz Cheney. They're voting for her not because they like her policies. They disagree with her on probably more policies than maybe even you disagree with her on. But they're voting for Kamala Harris because they care about our democracy. And they believe that Donald Trump is more dangerous to this country. So I'll ask, if you shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, would you still not vote for Kamala Harris?
I would probably vote for her if he actually murdered somebody that I saw him kill somebody.
I'm glad to hear you say that. What if it was proven in court that he raped a woman? Would you still not vote for Kamala Harris?
Well, I would have to look at the evidence.
Okay.
Of what kind of court it was proved in.
Well, a jury of his peers found that he was liable for sexual abuse. The judge characterized as rape. There's also 30 other women.
In a criminal court or civil court?
He was found liable is the word that I used. Hold on, I'm not done yet, though.
Right.
30 women have accused him of sexual assault or rape, including his ex-wife in court documents in a deposition. I ask you that question, sir, because at some point I think somebody would have to assume, boy, maybe he's done some bad things to women. That doesn't deter you
Well,
at
I'd
all?
like some evidence to prove that.
Okay, well, guess
All
what?
these accusations are
It's
just accusations.
the liable abuse that was found
In which
in a
court?
court of law in New York City.
Which was what?
Found,
Civil or criminal?
as I said, liable is not criminal. It's a civil court, and they had to look at
Right,
evidence, and they
exactly.
found that he was liable. So you don't believe that he's ever sexually assaulted a woman
well, here's
before?
I have not seen any evidence of that.
You
and I'll
haven't seen-
explain why.
so-
And I'm not doing it just to go to bat. I can explain if you let me. He was found in a civil court, which has a much less burden of proof than a criminal court, and he was in a state that openly admits that they hate this guy. It was clearly unfair against him. They had no evidence other than a woman just saying he assaulted.
So you think it was all a kangaroo court. Okay, and all the other women, they're all liars. Okay, we can move on now. So the threshold is you don't want him to
where's
murder
the
somebody.
evidence? Like, look.
What about the
respectfully,
34?
30
What
women
about the?
accused?
Okay, let's talk about evidence. What about the 34 counts that he's a felon that he was convicted of? Is that a kangaroo court as well, sir?
Convicted of what?
He was
You're talking about
34 felony counts that he was not only charged with but convicted of. Does that bother you at all?
You're
or-
not talking about the. Well, I don't really know the specifics.
You
of
don't
that
know
thing.
the-
I mean, I don't know if he's.
You don't know the
No, because,
specifics.
like,
Don't you think that's kind of important
You're talking.
in a presidential election
You're
when
talking
you
about when he made those with those payments with Michael Cohen. Is that am I correct about that? You're not talking about any
okay,
sexual thing.
so here's the thing. This has nothing to do with sexual stuff. Donald Trump is
Right,
a
okay.
34 count felon. He has other charges, the Jack Smith case and other cases, but the fact of the matter is he's a 34 count felon. You've already admitted, thankfully, that if he murders somebody, that would probably at least say, okay, I'll vote for Kamala Harris. I mentioned the liable sexual abuse. You're throwing that out the window. You don't think that was fair for him. I mentioned that the
well,
30.
show me some significant
mentioned
evidence that he did
the
it, Brian,
jury
and then
saw-
I'm perfectly willing to agree with you.
The jury saw the evidence, and they found in a court that he was liable for it. Now, if you want to
What
wish-wash
evidence?
that, the jury saw the evidence of it, and they.
Which was what?
I wasn't in the jury. I didn't see all the evidence. I trust our courts, and you don't, obviously. But I brought that up.
Because I mean, what do you think that OJ was innocent too? I mean, courts can obviously get things
And guess
wrong.
I'm so
Look,
glad.
there
I'm
was no
so glad
evidence
you
that-
mentioned that. You know why? Because OJ was found liable for double murder. But you want to poo-poo liable civil courts. Oh no, OJ was found liable for murder. I'm not saying courts always get it right, but there's something called credibility. And credibility meaning that there are over 30 women that I believe that claim Donald Trump sexually abused them. He's bragged about sexual abuse. I can grab them by the kitty cat. The guy has talked about his own daughter, that he would date his own daughter if he could. He's made despicable statements about women his entire life. He's crapped on our military. Suckers and losers. What he said about John
It's
McCain.
literally not. Yeah, but it's not enough to prove. He could say a million women could accuse him, or you, or me, or anybody else. Okay, show me the actual literal evidence that he did. Yeah, a jury of his peers. Again, in a state that is New York City a friend to Trump? They openly
I don't
admit
have a
that they hate
video.
him.
I don't have a videotape of Donald Trump sexually abusing a woman, but I have a feeling that if we showed you that videotape, you would say that it was edited by George Soros, with all due respect. The problem I have is I'm listing you all these things that he said, okay? Donald Trump talking about John McCain. That's one thing right there that I wouldn't vote for anybody. When you say you don't respect somebody because they were a POW when they were captured, all the statements that he has made, draft dodging the military, the lies, the cheating, the scandals, the felonies, the sexual abuse. Now you say, okay, murder. Okay, I'll vote for Harris if he
Well, you
murders
just
somebody.
asked me a simple question about murder. You could have said anything. I mean, that would just you're just giving some kind of outlandish example of if he literally killed somebody right on video. Then yeah, I wouldn't vote for him. But again, I'm not voting for him now, so that's kind of not really a relevant thing to make.
But
What
you're
I'm
also
saying
not
is,
voting for
just
Harris,
because
and you haven't given me, in my
because-
estimation, you haven't given me any real reasons why.
I mean, we already talked about the whole her funding all these, wanting to fund all these ridiculous wars.
She did not approve. She did not approve any of those funds. She's the vice president of the United States. That was
She's
Joe
talking
Biden.
about how she wants to.
No, she is not talking about how she wants to. In fact, to the contrary, she's been talking about how we need to support Israel, but they have a responsibility to not kill innocent people. That is not true, sir. You're blaming Kamala Harris for funds.
Well, why would they say they have a responsibility to not kill innocent people if you think they're not killing innocent people? Why would they have to?
I never said they're not killing innocent people. There is a difference between an intention of killing innocent people and innocent people dying in a war. Do you think the U.S. had an intention of killing hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis in the war in Iraq? Did you think we went in there because we wanted to kill a bunch of innocent people? No.
No, but that's an apples to orange comparison.
No, it's not. There are war.
Yes,
no, it's not. No, it's not.
Well, yeah, but it's not black and white. Yes, it is.
Yes,
Israel
it is.
Has a completely different relationship
in
with
war.
Palestine. They clearly want to kill every single one of them.
That you are 100% factually inaccurate. With all due respect, sir, you don't know what you're talking about, and and I appreciate the conversation, but you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm sorry to say this, sir, because I do appreciate our conversation. You are an ill-informed voter. Israel is objective. This is why this is so ridiculous, with all due respect. If Israel wanted to wipe out Palestine, they have the weaponry to do so. They would wipe out the country. They have the weapons to do so. How is it possible you don't understand that? You think that America willingly is giving money to Israel so that Israel could kill every single innocent Palestinian person is absurd. That's just stupid, sir. And it's not true. It's not true. So you're not voting for Kamala Harris because you think she's giving money to Israel, which, by the way, the vice president doesn't approve funds to Israel. So you're factually inaccurate about that. That would be Joe Biden that has final say. And you're also claiming that they're intentionally trying to wipe out all of the Palestinians, which is also not true. If they wanted to do that, they would nuke them tomorrow. They have the weaponry to do so. So you're ill-informed on this issue, and you're saying this is the main issue why you're not supporting Kamala Harris. I appreciate the conversation, sir, but you're just factually inaccurate, and that's what makes it frustrating. We're all entitled to our opinions. Kamala Harris hasn't approved $1 to Israel. And number two, they're not intentionally trying to kill Palestinians, and the U.S. actually does not support that, and Kamala Harris has talked about it.